After the world was incinerated to ashes, Kufra resurrected himself from the ground and walked over to his sister's dying body, sacrificing her life to awaken his vampire god status. But after blinding the demonic spider and using his divine bullet to launch a beacon towards the heavens, he realized that he lost the only thing that mattered to him in this world. So for the rest of his life, he swore to exterminate all Calamity-ranked demons from existence, and joined the White Knight Assassins Guild, becoming the vampire sage that would one day bring the world's end. However, on the first day of the job, Kufra was ambushed by a group of masked shooters led by a bandaged mutant, and after failing to protect his target, Kufra was sent away to become a private tutor for a princess. He took a train to the city of Flandor, an artificial landscape built within a gigantic chandelier, which served as a light source for the buildings and citizens inside, after darkness covered up the entire world. When Kufra arrived at his destination, he was greeted by the maids of the mansion, who told him that he would be working as a combat instructor for the princess of the house, Melinda Angel. However, while they were talking, Melida jumped on the balcony to see her new instructor, but after staring into his beautiful purple eyes, the princess lost her balance and fell to the ground. Sprinting into action, Kufra arrived just in time to catch her in his arms, before introducing himself to Melida as her new daddy. Sorry, I meant private tutor for the next 3 years. Because his broke ass had nothing else to do, Kufra also agreed to double as her personal bodyguard. And when it was time for school, he escorted Melida to the academy for her training session. While watching the students fight, Kufra realized that although she was born into a powerful royal family, Melida was unable to use mana to boost her abilities in a battle like the other girls. She struggled to keep up using her sword training, but eventually got bodied by her opponent, and everyone laughed at her for ever thinking that she would become a great warrior someday. Tired of the constant shaming, Melida ran off like a drama queen. But when her cousin Elise tried talking to her about it, she yelled at her, saying that she would never know how it felt to be a worthless loser with no friends. Unlike Melida, Elise Angel unlocked her Paladin mana class at a very young age, and after journaling the events of that day, Kufra realized that Melida's mother must have developed plot with another man from a lower rank. Following his boss's orders, Kufra made plans to quietly eliminate the princess and escape the castle, but when he opened the door, he noticed that Melida had already left the room. Meanwhile, across the dark and lonely alleys, Melida struggled to run away from a mysterious entity, and when Kufra sensed that something was off, he ran across the city in search for her. Following her to a rose garden, Kufra realized that the princess was under attack by a group of hideous E-rank lycanthropes dressed up in ugly Halloween costumes. The Pumpkinheads continued to torture Melida and beat her up like a ragdoll, while Kufra remained hidden in the bushes, wondering why she didn't just call any of the town guards for help. One of the creatures grabbed her ponytail and was about to give her a free lineup, so Melida yelled at the creature to stop, saying that her golden hair was the only way she could remember her dead mother and feel like an actual part of the family. Hearing those words, Kufra realized that Melida was only just trying to prove her worth to the entire kingdom, and he knew that he couldn't let her end up worthless like him. So in a flash, he sliced up the jack-o'-lantern holding Melida's hair, and as his entire body burned with a majestic blue aura, Kufra destroyed the other two freaks, finishing the last one off with his triple sword combo. Walking up to the princess, Kufra apologized for arriving late to protect her, and Melida pretended like it was all okay. But he knew that she was just acting tough to hide her true feelings. Taking her gentle hands in his own, Kufra promised to always be there for her whenever she called. And as the tears streamed down Melida's face, he said that there was a special way for her to finally be able to manifest her mana. However, it was a risky procedure that had many side effects and could even result in death, so Melida was required to sign an agreement, saying that she was old enough to do a BBL surgery. Desperate to become a real warrior, Melida accepted his terms, so Kufra casted a spell that made the rose petals glow all around them, before drinking out of a strange potion from his pocket. Holding her face like a Disney prince, Kufra poured the liquid into Melida's mouth with a gentle kiss, causing her to fall backwards and plunge into an ocean filled with his little swimmers. The next morning, Kufra examined her body to make sure that the mana transfer spell had actually worked, but Melida was nervous because she had never felt a man's touch before. However, Kufra told her not to worry because even Zendaya had more buns than her, and because she was too shy to think of a comeback. Melida just laid still and allowed him to finish the checkup. After the physical exam, Kufa said that the spell was successful, but that it had given Melida the mana of a samurai, rather than that of a paladin which Elise and the rest of her family possessed. And to make things worse, Kufa said that Melida was not allowed to use her powers in public until after a couple weeks, because it could make the media spread bad rumors about her. Despite all of this, the princess was glad that she was finally a real warrior with powers, so she promised to work hard and become a great fighter under Master Kufa's guidance. Later that day at school, one of the class bullies, Nerva, walked up to Melida and took her favorite textbook without asking, before strutting out of the classroom with her squad of ugly brats. Although she now had the power to stand up to them, Melida was forced to act like a hopeless princess and do nothing, just so she could keep her mana abilities a secret. Kufa noticed the sad look on her face, and he promised her that it was all worth it, because she was going to annihilate all of them at the fighting tournament a week from now. Being a trained assassin, Kufa was able to detect that someone was spying on them, and when he yelled at them to come out, his pink hottie from the train suddenly appeared, with Elise standing by her side. She introduced herself to Melida as Elise's new instructor, Rose Prickett, and the princess was shocked that she was shaking hands with a legendary member of the Mighty Hero Squad. Apparently, Rose was a magical prodigy, who gained the ability to use mana at a very young age, and she went on to become the youngest member of the Hero Squad, as well as an honored knight of the King's Guard. Seeing that they had met before, Rose was eager to continue her relationship with Kufa, but being a shameless scumbag, Kufa smacked her hand away and said that he never tasted the same honey pot twice. Annoyed that she had let him hit it the first time, Rose said she was going to make sure that Elise defeated Melida at the tournament, before running off like a crazy ex-girlfriend. It was finally time for the competition, but while Melida was getting all anxious about her powers, she noticed that her father was also attending, and she knew that she had to impress him. However, when she got into the hallway, Melida started to panic again, and Nerva came along to make things worse, calling her a pathetic crybaby and a useless waste of royal blood. Tired of her loud mouth, Kufa greeted the bratty girl like a gentleman, before telling her to return her ugly-ass pigtail wig to whichever swine she had borrowed it from. His words made Nerva very angry, and she was about to slap his face when Melida suddenly got up and smacked her hand away, saying that Kufa was more important to her than a bunch of fake friends. The girls laughed at her weird taste in men, before walking away into the arena, and when Melida realized that she had just screwed herself over, she bent down and began to panic again. Kufa was happy that she had stood up for him, but he was also worried that he would lose his job if Melida failed to impress her father by defeating someone at the tournament. The head teacher raised her scepter for the games to begin, and while her teammates quickly moved forward to battle the other girls, Melida decided to face her fears and take on Nerva herself. Intent on humiliating Melida, Nerva charged at her with a powerful mana blast, but Melida shocked everyone by surrounding herself with a golden aura and deflecting the move with her sword. Although she was surprised by this achievement, Nerva began to talk crap about her opponent to make her feel worthless, so Melida decided to shut her ass up with a sharp kick to the gut. She tried getting up to fight back, but Melida outsmarted her by blowing sand on her eye to reduce her vision, before smashing her against a hard rock with a fierce mana blast. Furious that the useless Melida angel was tossing her around like a baseball, Nerva cranked up her mana to 100, before destroying the ground with her earthquake combo move. Thinking that she had won, Nerva walked over to Melida and told her to beg for forgiveness, but the princess shocked her by getting up again and surrounding her with a massive tornado. She began to clash her weapon against Nerva's, pushing her backwards with each strike, but when it was finally time for Melida to land the finishing blow, her mana glow suddenly vanished. Now Nerva had the upper hand, and she quickly smashed Melida away with her staff, before shooting her down with multiple mana blasts until the princess was too weak to fight back. Nerva ordered her to give up and tell Kufa to become her new instructor, but Melida refused, saying that she could never share the same whiner with a low-class girl like her. Raging with anger, Nerva began to summon her ultimate combo move, but before she could finish saying the words, Melida took her out with a single strike from her golden phantom blade. Kufa was shocked that Melida was able to pull off such a delicate technique, and he figured that she must have spent the entire night practicing it before the tournament. Now that Nerva had been taken down, Melida's teammates came together to block the other opponents, giving her the chance to claim the first round of the contest for her team. After the match, Melida was very excited to meet up with Kufa, who congratulated her on the victory, but her arrogant father just walked right past them and pretended not to see her. However, Cufa told Melida to cheer up because she had finally proved herself to be a true warrior, and Nerva warmed her heart by returning her spell book and apologizing for everything. Following the crazy experience at the tournament, it was finally time for a more calming event, and Melida was excited to attend the fireworks festival with the rest of her classmates. Asking if he loved to attend festivals as well, Cufa remained silent on the matter, and Melida said that he was playing hard to get for someone who already knew every curve in her entire body. Eager to change the subject, Cufa confessed that he had never attended a festival before in his life, because he grew up in a place where all that existed was eternal darkness. Melida was sad to hear this, so to lighten up the mood, she went on to explain how all the girls from her school would wear matching costumes and dress up like swans for the festival. He asked her to try the dress on, but Melida was too shy and didn't expect him to be so direct, so she said that it would be better if she wore it at the same time with the other girls. Asking if he could dance with her at the festival, Cufa said that he had some important work to do, but that he would show up at the last minute to spin her around a few times. On the night of the event, all the girls were happy in their matching costumes, until Elise arrived and stole the show with her overpriced dress made by Donatella Versace. Some of the lower class girls hated Elise's dress, and they began to call her a show-off, so she ran away to avoid all the nasty comments, with Melida quickly chasing after her. She found her crying by the water fountain, and Melida wanted to console her cousin, but before she could say anything, they were ambushed by a group of men led by a weirdo wrapped in toilet paper. The kidnappers took them to an underground lair, and the mummy man told Melida that he was part of a secret organization that specializes in turning weak humans into supernatural beings. Because he knew that Melida was not a paladin user like the rest of her family, Fourply said that he was going to do her a favor by transferring Elise's mana into her body through science. Melida didn't like this idea, and when Elise finally woke up, she was terrified by the sight of the freaky pumpkin men, which made Melida remember how she had always been the scaredy ever since they were little. Realizing that she had to stick up for her cousin, Melida used a sledgehammer to crash a T-Rex skeleton onto the pumpkin freaks, before escaping out of the room with Elise. They found a map of the tomb showing all the various exits, and Melida came up with a brilliant plan to defeat their captors, by creating a special weapon using different parts of Elise's dress. However, before she could complete the weapon, the jack-o'-lanterns caught up to them, smacking Melida to the ground and taking Elise as their prisoner. Not ready to give up just yet, Melida was able to summon fire from beneath the earth, turning her weapon into a magical flamethrower, which she used to cook the circus freaks into pumpkin pies. After this, the girls quickly made their way towards the exit, but they were blocked by Paper Towel, who smacked both of them to the ground with a single hit. He was still intent on performing the experiment on the girls, but when he looked into each of their eyes, the mummy man realized that their combined powers would be too much for him to handle. He was just about to poison Melida with his green aura when Cufa and Rose came bursting through the door, and defeated all of the low-ranked creatures with their superior abilities. Cufa went after the mummy man alone, but the crazy dude injected a box of goo with a strange chemical, transforming it into a humongous beast that was too strong for any warrior to fight. Despite the unfair advantage, Cufa still fought bravely with his opponent, blocking all of his surprise attacks in mid-air until he was able to finish him off with a blue inferno move. However, he got distracted by the monster, so the mummy man used his bandages to grab Cufa's hand and drain out all the mana from his body, before yanking off his limb like an action figure. But because he was such a badass protagonist, Cufa defeated the dragon with just one arm, and he pointed his sword at the enemy while swearing to train and protect Melida until she became the strongest warrior alive. Tired of all the long talk, Bandage Boy brought his monster back to life and it swallowed Cufa whole. But to his surprise, Cufa was able to defeat the creature by destroying it from the inside. Suddenly, a strange fog surrounded the room, and Cufa's hair turned completely white, after which he reattached his arm like it was nothing, and revealed himself as an all-powerful vampire. Mummy Man was scared at the sight of Cufa's real form, because vampires were the deadliest beings in the Dark Realm, and he wondered why such a powerful creature like him agreed to become a tutor for a dumb girl. Cufa held the idiot against the wall, and told him not to worry because he wasn't going to kill him, but that if he ever attacked Melida or Elise again, he would make sure to suck out all his blood and use his bandages as an ass wipe. Back at the festival, Cufa told Melida that it was her father who instructed him to save her, just so she would feel special, and the both of them danced the night away as the fireworks went off. After the festival, it was time for another big event at the girls' academy, and both Melida and Elise were excited that they would finally be able to spend some quality time together. However, Cufa wasn't interested in getting closer with Rose, and he pulled his arm away from her, before telling her that they would always be sworn enemies because they served different families. Rose didn't agree with his opinion, but despite their differences, they both agreed that the most important thing was to make sure that the Angel girls got along during the event. All of the students gathered up at the ice castle, and the headmistress arrived shortly after, telling them that it was time for the annual inter-school fighting competition. Each year, their school and another academy in the district competed in a series of fierce battles after a long week of training, until the last girl standing was crowned the title of Moon Goddess. Melida's academy had won the contest many times over, so the students were confident that this year would be no different. And everyone was sure that the school president, Miss Krista, would be part of the contestants. The girls from the other school arrived at the gates, and after confirming their names on the list, the giant female bouncers let them inside, with Kiera and Sala serving as the contestants for their academy. It was time for the host school to reveal their own contestants, but when the names were displayed on the stained glass, everyone was shocked to see that it was Melida and Elise who were chosen. The students immediately started to gossip about the girls, but the headmistress called them over to the stage, and she explained the rules of the tournament, before asking each of them to choose their teammates. Melida was up first, and when she stared at the crowd, no one seemed to like her ugly ass face. So Nerva raised up her hand and agreed to join her team, followed by a senior student named Shenfa. The other contestants selected their teammates as well, and the headmistress ended the opening ceremony by sealing off the entire school with her powerful force field magic. The students continued to talk about the selection process, and because she was such a drama queen, Melida started to cry about it, but Cufa hugged her and said that everything would be alright. This sneaky little girl is just trying to feel on some vampire D. They began to train later that night, and Melida's reflexes were still not good enough to block all of Nerva's attacks, so Cufa told her to try harder, but Shenfa suggested that they all take a quick break. While she was resting by the bushes, a random girl from the rival academy met up with Melida, telling her that she had to defeat Elise in order to prove that she was a real member of the Angel House. However, Melida didn't want to start a petty rivalry with her cousin because of a family title. But before she could respond or ask for the girl's name, she suddenly vanished with the wind. While everyone was asleep, Elise's chaperone Mrs. Othello snuck out to do some shady stuff. But Cufa the Night Owl was still awake, and he nearly gave the old woman a heart attack when he called out her name. Being a master detective, Cufa pulled out a piece of stained glass from her dress, which was proof that she had switched up the names during the opening ceremony, and Mrs. Othello was forced to confess everything like a noob criminal. Rose and the girls were also awake, and when Elise asked her why she had done such a thing, the old lady said that she wanted to show everyone how Melida Angel was nothing but a fake princess. Furious at the old hag, Melida told her that nothing could ever separate the bond that she shared with Elise, and that she was going to prove everyone wrong by winning the tournament. After Melida had gone to bed, Cufa was about to resume his patrol when he received a strange letter in the shape of a swan, causing him to go outside and figure out who it came from. Cufa found the little messenger sitting on a tree branch, and he recognized her to be a fellow assassin known as Black Media, who only conversed using special notes that turned into flames. She told him that their organization had sent her to investigate if he had broken the sacred law by sharing his mana with a human, but Cufa ignored her talk and quickly jumped into action. However, Media was wicked fast, and she evaded all of Cufa's strikes, while calling him a hopeless romantic who betrayed the entire Assassin's Creed for some hickey with a teenage girl. Tired of her allegations, Cufa pointed his blade at Media, and said that his only job was to protect Melida, after which the both of them charged up their manas in preparation for a fierce battle. Meanwhile, back at the dorms, Elise met up with Melida and said that she was going to lose to her on purpose at the tournament, so that everyone would finally acknowledge her as a real warrior. However, Melida didn't like this idea, because it meant that she would never learn her true limits. But Elise had already made up her mind, and she left the room without saying another word. Back to the overpowered assassins, Rose quickly arrived to assist Cufa in the battle, and with their combined powers, they were able to make Black Media retreat for the night. And when the guards finally arrived, Cufa explained to them that Media was a rare mana user with shapeshifting abilities, allowing her to switch between all the major magical ranks. He and Rose tried to tell the headmistress that it was too dangerous to continue with the contest, but the director wasn't going to let some punk assassin ruin all her hard work, and she said that the show must go on. At the breakfast table, Rose noticed that the two angel girls were sitting apart from each other, and she figured that something was wrong. But when she tried talking to Elise about it, she didn't get a response. Mrs. Othello spoke up instead, saying that Melida didn't deserve to sit anywhere next to Elise, because she was clearly not on the same level with her, and would only end up slowing Elise down. The other students heard this and began to gossip about Melida, but Nerva quickly walked over and sat down beside her, after which Shenfa came around and teased the both of them for being besties. As days passed, the contestants continued to train in preparation for the tournament. But as they spent more time apart, Melida and Elise couldn't help but feel distant from each other. With the help of her teammates and Kufa's strict training, Melida began to improve her skills, and when she went to bed that night, she noticed the scars on her body from all of Kufa's pounding. Being a bad boy with a gentle heart, Kufa brought her some hot chocolate to ease the pain, and when he noticed the sad look on her face, he asked her if she wanted to go another round. However, Melida explained that she was feeling sad because Elise had told her that she was going to lose the tournament on purpose, in order to make her look good in front of everyone. Kufa was shocked to hear this, because it also meant that he had been wasting his goddamn time training her. But he advised Melida to talk things out with Elise during the tournament. He said that their bond as cousins was something that would continue to endure no matter what, and so Melida should never be afraid to tell Elise how she really felt about anything. The big day had finally arrived, and while everyone was excited to watch the action with their special goggles, Kufa had to leave the crowd and look around for any sighting of Black Media. The headmistress raised her scepter to announce the start of the tournament, and all the teams made their way into the ice castle, with Melida and her crew being the last ones to enter. They were quickly attacked by members of Elise's squad, and while the other girls were occupied with their own opponents, Melida immediately went forward to face Elise in a showdown. Meanwhile, Kufa noticed someone strange standing on the rooftop, and he figured that it was Black Media disguised as a student, so he told her to turn herself over to him quietly. However, the girl teased him, saying that she would rather bend over for him instead, so Kufa slashed her bag away with his blade and held her against the wall for being a naughty girl. He told her to cut the crap, but the girl placed her hand on his face and said that she wanted to sit on it like a chair, so he drew out his sword. But she blocked his attack with her giant machete. Kufa noticed that her power was unique, and he asked her to introduce herself, so she said that her name was Mule Amour, a princess from one of the strongest royal families, with the Mana class of Diablo. When he remembered that Black Media could only copy the powers of lower-ranked classes, Kufa realized that he had made a huge mistake, and he apologized to Mule before running away. Back at the tournament, the angel girls kept on fighting until Elise was forced to show her true power, by slamming Melida against the wall and calling her a pathetic weakling. Elise said that the reason she chose to lose the tournament on purpose was because she always wanted to stay behind Melida's shadow and be her little sister forever. But now that they both knew who the stronger one was, Elise was forced to accept the fact that Melida could never again surpass her abilities and become her role model again. However, to her surprise, Melida managed to block her attack, and she said that she was going to prove her worth to Elise by kicking her ass and winning the tournament. Elise stepped back to charge up her mana for the ultimate strike, but Melida anticipated this move, so she smashed her sword away, before pinning her to the ground like a kickboxer. After showing her who's boss, Melida told Elise that she would continue to improve her skills so that she could protect her from danger, and the two of them hugged things out like sisters. However, unknown to them, Black Media had snuck into the tournament disguised as Nerva, and after observing Melida's fighting style, she knew that Kufa had transferred his mana into her. She began to destroy the castle with her magic, and Melida, who was still on a high from defeating Elise, decided to take her on, but Media wiped the floor with her ass like a dirty old rag. When the ice bouncers realized that they had been played, they tried to force Nadia to the ground, but she resisted and ended up using her strong mana to crush them to pieces. She was about to do the same with Melida when Kufa and Rose suddenly arrived, and because he wanted a private show, Kufa took Media out to the forest and asked her to choose between his blade and his hardwood. However, Media said that she was still too young to taste either of those things, and so he made her promise to deliver a letter to the chief assassin, saying that he wasn't actually a traitor. Following the week-long fiasco, the tournament finally came to an end, and after all the votes were casted, Kara Espada from the rival academy was crowned the new moon goddess. Although none of them had won the title, the girls were excited that their relationship was back to normal, and Melida asked Elise to join her new combat team, to which she happily agreed. Later that night, Melida, Elise, and 2 other girls snuck out of their rooms and passed through an underground waterway to attend a secret after-party hosted by the senior students. When they got to the venue of the party, Melida and the others were shocked to see how pretty the place was, and they admired all the different plot armors that the students had on. Shenfa and Kara welcomed everyone to the show, and they raised a toast to the good friendship between their schools, before telling the girls that the party was a tradition passed down by the former students. After the quick intro, the girls went straight to stuffing their bellies with delicious treats, and while they were busy eating, Kara walked up to their group and refilled their glasses with more PG grape juice. She told them that her victory at the tournament this year was merely out of luck, but that next year, she would make sure to annihilate every single contestant that dared stand in her way. Mule advised her not to brag about a contest that was still months away, but Kara told her to focus on keeping her panties on throughout the night, before laughing like a villain and walking away. After enjoying the snacks, it was now time for a party game, and because she was such a flirty queen, Mule suggested that they all talk about their love lives outside of campus. Melida was up first, and although she was dying to talk about Kufa, she lied and said that she had never been in love before. So Mule leaned closer and said that she could teach her a thing or two behind closed doors. Mule's friend Sala said that she couldn't find true love because of the size of her plots, and so Mule decided to talk about scary stories instead. But Melida said that Elise didn't like such things. However, she assured them that it was more of a sad romance than a scary story, and she told the tale of a couple who lived a sad and miserable life because of how broke they were. The losers couldn't even afford to pay rent, and so the drunk-ass husband decided to kill his wife and rip her heart out, before running out of town and drowning himself in the ocean. Elise wasn't terrified by the story at all, so Sala decided to switch things up by telling them how the dead wife turned into a ghost known as the Grey Witch, who attacked young girls and tore out their hearts. Sala's plot twist seemed to work, and Elise fainted right away in Melida's arms. But while Mule was trying to tell them that it was all just a dumb story, all the lights in the venue suddenly went off. A red light began to glow inside the room, after which a mysterious woman with a pointed hat appeared, and after taking a closer look, Melida realized that it was the Grey Witch. The students started to freak out and the Grey Witch was about to attack Melida, so she used her blanket to create a diversion, before running out of the room with the rest of the girls. While finding their way back to the dorms, Melida stepped on something strange, and because it looked pink and felt really squishy, they all thought it was a heart and started to walk faster. However, the other girls began to step on the gooey substance as well, and then the entire waterway literally began to ooze out pink sticky liquid, which poured all over their bodies. Scared that Kufa would find her looking like this, Melida started to run faster towards the exit, and the others followed right behind her, until they were all too exhausted to keep running. Tired of her wet clothes, Elise was about to take them off and go commando, but when Sala said that there was goo stuck between her plot armor, everyone wanted to have a feel of her juicy melons. The Grey Witch suddenly arrived to ruin their fun, but this time Melon Plots decided to fight back. But for some reason, she lost control of her powers and fell back into the water. Melida decided to take up the fight, but her basic sword move was easily dispelled by the Grey Witch's powerful magic, and it was at that moment that the girls knew that they were all screwed. The girls started running towards the other exit, while the Grey Witch chased after them, and when they finally returned to the courtyard, they were glad that she had stopped following them. Tufa arrived just in time, and the girls were glad that they were finally in safe hands. But when he showed them his bloody chest from being attacked by the Grey Witch, they all yelled out in fear. However, it turns out that Rose had gotten to hear about their secret party plans, so she told Kufa about it, and the both of them planned the entire witch hunt saga to teach the girls a lesson. When they heard this, Melida and the others called Kufa a perv for allowing them to run around in their pajamas like that, and he was forced to read them a bedtime story as his punishment. The following morning, Kufa woke Melida up from bed by pointing a wooden stick at her face, and she got all grumpy, saying that she would have preferred his hard wood in her mouth instead.
What do you mean by that?
He reminded her that the academy was going on a trip to another town, and on the way there, Melida told Kufa that it was wrong for him to barge into her room like that, because she was a grown-up lady. However, Kufa completely ignored what she was saying in order to receive a special potion from his boss, and before he could respond to her statement, Rose and Elise ran up to meet the both of them. Asking her the problem was, Rose told Kufa that she wanted him to act like her boyfriend for a few days to help her get out of an arranged marriage that her father was planning, although he didn't really like the idea, and Melida was obviously burning with jealousy by the side like a bitter ex. Cufa agreed to become Rose's fake lover for an entire week. Along the way, Rose latched onto his arm like a toddler and called him sweet names, but when Melida couldn't take it anymore, she held his other arm and told the Barbie to buzz off. When the school's principal, Mrs. Stacy, saw this, she called the ladies pathetic simps for fighting over one man. And she went over to greet Elise instead, calling her a true princess unlike her useless cousin. Melida was just about to defend herself when a carriage suddenly drove into the academy grounds, and Rose's father, Mark Prickett, stepped out looking like the protagonist of a medieval movie. He met up with the headmistress, and the both of them led the way, while Rose told the girls that her dad was going to be the tour guide for their field trip to the underground town of Shangarda. Cufa said that Shangarda was Rose's hometown, and his fake boo wondered how he got to know such a thing. But he also added that Mark Prickett was an expert in the field of genetics. Turning around to face them, Mark told Rose that her wedding was slated to happen in the next 3 days, and she got so furious that she held Cufa's arm and called him her true lover. Mark walked forward to challenge the young man, but then quickly stepped back, and when Rose asked him what happened, he said that Cufa reminded him of a boy that once destroyed their town. The headmistress instructed everyone to follow her inside. But because of Mark's allegations, Cufa was starting to feel uncomfortable, so he greeted Melida before walking the other way. At the dining hall, Melida couldn't stop thinking of Cufa, so she ran out of the place to find him. And along the way, she met up with Media, who had been demoted to an instructor after failing to defeat Cufa. They heard a large scream from afar, so Melida rushed over to check it out, but was shocked to see the headmistress holding a student that had mysteriously fallen unconscious. She was also shocked to see Cufa there, who she thought had already left the school, and Mark said that he was going to use his latest invention to find out who the culprit was. By pouring a strange liquid into the fireplace, Mark was able to show the color of the culprit's mana, which he said belonged to a young man, and all eyes suddenly turned to Cufa, but the instructor swore that he didn't do it. On the train ride to Shangarda, Melida and Elise tried to figure out who the real mastermind behind the attack was, but their thoughts were interrupted by the raging thunderstorm outside. Mark told them not to worry because such things were common in his town, but Krista was scared that the train would collapse, and Media felt like there was something suspicious about the old man. The train descended deep into the ground until they got to Shangarda, and while everyone was enjoying the view, Melida heard a strange noise and decided to snoop around. Cufa caught her in the act, and when Mark saw the both of them standing there, he warned them to stay away from that particular place, because it was a mystery spot where supernatural things tend to occur. While they were talking, Rose's actual fiancé Dick Grayson ran up to Mark, informing him that a certain local had come down with a deadly disease and was in need of urgent medical attention. After examining the patient, Mark said that it was too late for any form of treatment, and so he called in an executioner to give the man peace and send him into his isekai. The headmistress was shocked to see this, as public execution was a crime under the law, but Mark assured her that it was the only way to save the man's soul and stop the disease from spreading to others. Later that night, Rose took Cufa to the chapel room, where she introduced him to all of her cute little siblings, who were excited that their big sister had finally scored a hot guy. She told him that Mark had adopted her and all the other kids after a strange incident killed all of their actual parents, and that Mark's wife Carmilla had also died from the incident. When Cufa got back to the hotel room, he found Melida looking grumpy because of his outing with Rose, and so to make it up to her, he took her out on a date to an underground cave. Melida was excited to finally spend some alone time with her man, and when Cufa pulled her into the stream below, rather than sinking in, they began to float over the water like fairies. He told her that the rocks had a strong magnetic pull that created a zero-gravity effect within the cave, and although she was having a fun time, Melida wondered how Cufa knew all about this stuff. After their date, Cufa took her back to the hotel room, and Melida apologized for being such a diva around Rose, but he told her not to worry about it, and just stood by her side until she fell asleep. The following day, Melida and Elise joined the rest of the students at the chapel, but were shocked to see that all of Instructor Rose's siblings had been sent into an early isekai. The headmistress pointed out that the incident was very similar to the one that happened at their school, and because he already hated him, Mark ordered all of his men to hunt down Cufa. While everyone was going for the training session, Melida snuck out of the group to find Cufa, but she was caught by Media, who called her a simp for risking her life over some dumbass guy. However, she agreed to help her find the lover boy, and when they got back to the hotel, Media changed out of her clothes and put on a school uniform to disguise herself from the public. A hotel attendant suddenly walked into the room, so to avoid getting caught, Melida pretended to be Media's big sister while hugging her tightly, and the attendant gave them a candy bar for being so cute. When they got out of the hotel, Melida was eager to get some intel about all the mystery spots in town, but when she asked two ladies about it, they scolded her and gave her some candy instead. Being a professional assassin, Media told Melida to watch and learn, and when they stopped by a flower shop, she pretended to be interested in a particular rose, drawing the attention of the shop owner. The old lady told her that the flower was a breed that only grew in Shangarda, and by using the power of her cute eyes, Media was able to get the woman to tell them all about the mystery spots. Using the shop owner's descriptions, Melida and Media were able to track the location of another mystery spot, which was an abandoned house that looked like a prop from a Halloween movie. When they got into the house, Media noticed that there was something strange about the place, so she started to inspect the floorboards, until she found a hidden staircase leading deeper into the ground. Making a fireball with her powers, Media told Melida to stay close, and the both of them descended the stairs until they got to a dungeon filled with an endless number of prison cells. Pointing her torch at one of the cells, Media and Melida were shocked to see corpses of dead Shangarda residents inside, and Melida recognized one of them as the man that was executed a day ago. As Media had suspected, Mark was performing illegal lycanthrope conversion experiments on people, while hiding the bodies in specific places under the guise of the so-called mystery spots. Melida was shocked that Lord Prickett could do such a thing, but then she started to hear a strange voice in her head again, so she ran out of the dungeon without saying a word. Her instincts led her to a building where a group of people were already gathered, and when Melida went inside, she was shocked to find both Elise and Rose lying lifeless on the ground. Moving closer to her cousin, Melida was glad to see that Elise was still breathing, but Rose's body was covered in tomato sauce and Mark cried out in pain for the death of his beloved daughter. The headmistress told Melida that Elise and Rose had noticed her absence and gone looking for her, which was when they were brutally attacked by an unknown warrior. Grayson ordered all the men to find Kufa at once, but Mark picked up Rose's body from the floor and he said that he was going to use one of his latest inventions to bring her back to life. Melida took Elise back to her hotel room, and while she was feeling down for leaving her unprotected, Shenfa suddenly entered the room, telling her that the townsfolk were after her as well. It turns out that someone had attacked Mark while he was on his way to revive Rose, and because Kufa was nowhere to be found, the men planned on capturing Melida as bait to lure in the criminal. Blocking the entrance door, Shenfa instructed Melida to leave the room immediately, so she looked at Elise one last time, before grabbing her sword and jumping out through the window. Running back to the same garden from the first day, Melida used her sword to destroy a huge boulder, revealing a secret stairway leading underground, similar to the one at the haunted house. Facing her fears, Melida ventured into the dark tunnel alone, until she found a secret library, with books written by Mark Prickett on how to transfer the genes of a lycanthrope into a human. Suddenly, the voice that Melida was always hearing started to speak up again, and when she asked the stranger to show himself, Instructor Rose appeared through the door instead. Melida was glad to see her alive, but Rose had a weird glow in her eyes, and she opened her mouth to reveal two sharp fangs, before telling Melida that she was going to suck out all of her bodily fluid. Noticing the blue mana flames in her eyes, Melida realized that Rose had been the culprit all this time, and just as she was about to go all Twilight Saga on her, Kufa arrived just in time to block the attack. He tried holding her off with his normal abilities, but Rose was just too strong, so Kufa had no choice but to reveal his vampire mode as well, shocking Melida to the core. For God's sake, the dude's last name is literally Vampire. Now that he was on equal footing with her, Kufa tried reminding Rose about all the good memories they shared, but his words had no effect, and she ran out of the library instead. Because he had failed to hide his true identity from Melida, Kufa was forced to erase all of her memories for good, so he pinned her to the ground and was about to perform the spell. However, Melida didn't want to forget all of the good times they shared, because despite his new Dracula makeup, he was still the same person that helped her become a great fighter. Moving closer to him, Melida wrapped her arms around Kufa's neck and gave him a tight hug, but he quickly pulled away, saying that there was no way the both of them could be together. Kufa told Melida that he was a half-vampire, which made him one of the deadliest lycanthropes to ever exist, and also a natural-born enemy of all magical humans including her. For some clarity, he decided to tell her the story of how Mark Prickett screwed the entire town years ago by signing a deal with an S-rank demon spider to run experiments on humans. Lord Prickett had hoped that by agreeing to work for the Spider Freak, he would be able to revive his wife who had been in a coma for months, but things didn't go as planned. The experiment went out of control, destroying the town and killing all the children in Mark's care. But Cufa, who was also adopted by Lord Prickett, managed to survive the attack because of his vampire genes. However, when he noticed that his sister Rose was barely alive, Cufa made the ultimate sacrifice by taking a bite out of her neck and turning her into a vampire so that she could keep on living. Shocked that he would do this, Bug Eyes told Cufa that he had just made Rose's life so much worse, but he was suddenly attacked by a group of mana users who were sent to Shangarda to kill him. Spider Demon defeated 2 of the men without breaking a sweat, and he was just about to finish the last one off when Cufa jumped on him and started to punch out all of his eyes till he turned blind. Taking advantage of the situation, the last warrior slid under the giant spider before loading up his weapon and wiping the freak out of existence with a powerful laser blast. Walking up to Cufa, the man asked him what he was doing, and Cufa said that he was erasing all of Rose's memories so that she could live a happy life and never endanger anyone with her vampire abilities. He begged the man not to arrest Rose because of her lycanthrope powers, and in exchange for keeping everything a secret, Cufa agreed to work under the man as a trainee assassin. Despite hearing all of this, Melida still wanted to keep her memories of Cufa, so he made her vow to never reveal his identity to anyone, unless he would suck out all of the sticky fluid from her body. Cufa said that the spider freak named Nakwa was back, and that he was responsible for activating Rose's vampire powers, causing her to lose control and attack all those kids. Although Nakwa was an S-rank calamity, Cufa had a plan to take down the spider freak for good, but he needed some time, so he asked Melida to crash Rose's wedding at the church. The false lovers were just about to make their vows when Melida suddenly barged in and told Rose that she and Cufa would never get together because he liked women with bigger plots. Well, I guess that makes 2 of them. Annoyed by her statement, Rose charged up her mana and fired multiple ring blasts at her, so Melida took out her sword and shot back with an Inferno sword slash. However, Rose dodged her attack quite easily, but it was never meant for her in the first place, and when the flames hit Mark Prickett, his body became so hot that Nakwa was forced to come out of hiding. Pointing her blade at Nakwa, Melida told him to freeze or she would squash him like a bug, forcing him to transform out of his spider mode and into an ugly-ass human with a terrible fashion sense. She told everyone that Nakwa was responsible for all of the killings, and when they tried to attack him, he destroyed the entire church with just a single move, before escaping through a secret passage. Rose quickly chased after him, while remembering all of the horrible things that he made her do. But before she could attack Nakwa, he grabbed her neck and was prepared to choke her until she called him daddy. Luckily, Cufa arrived just in time to kick the weirdo away, and the both of them activated their vampire forms together. But Nakwa laughed before transforming into an all-powerful spider monster. They tried attacking him on both sides, but Nakwa was just too strong, and he tied up Rose's rocky avalanche with his sticky spider fluid before jumping down to crush them with his claws. However, he was still just a blind, useless creature, so while Nakwa was searching for his opponents, Rose snuck under him and blasted the bozo away by summoning the flames of Asgard. This made Nakwa land above a magnetized cave, causing his body to float endlessly, and so Cufa finished him off by punching him against a rocky projection, where he was roasted into a kebab by lightning. However, Nakwa had the ability to clone himself into many tiny versions, and he was able to escape by passing through a crack on the ground. But Cufa already had a plan to deal with this, and when Nakwa's clones appeared at the chapel, Melida and the other girls used their powers to destroy every last one until there was nothing left for him to regenerate from. After the battle, Rose recovered all her memories of Cufa from when they were little, but because he wanted her to keep living a normal life, he was forced to watch her cry as he sealed them away again. Meanwhile, Mark was sulking over the fact that his wife was about to die, so Cufa gave him a drug to reverse the effects of whatever experiment was performed on her and bring her back to life. After the whole Shangarda incident, Mark turned himself over to the authorities, and all the girls were glad to take the train ride back home and finally leave the creepy ghost town. Several months passed and it was almost time for the end of the school year, so the headmistress talked to the students about a special exam that would take place before the graduation ceremony known as the Vibria Goat Certification Exam. Cufa explained to Melida and Elise that Vibria Goat was an underground library containing millions of books from around the globe, and Rose added that the certification exam was extremely dangerous. However, he told them not to worry because only senior students were allowed to take the exams. But suddenly the headmistress walked up to them and asked the angel girls to participate. She said that in order to prove to everyone that they were actually worthy of being the school's contestants at the Moon Goddess competition, the girls had to take at least the first step of the Vibria Goat exam. Meanwhile, at the Shixel residence, Sala's brother Serge Shixel held a meeting with a group of nobles, where he told them that Melida's true mana class was actually samurai and not paladin. The nobles were surprised to hear this, and they began to question whether or not Melida was a member of the angel household. So Serge said that he was going to make her fake ass known to the public. Mule suggested that the best way to do it was for her and Sala to trick Melida into saying her mana class out loud during the Vibria Goat exam, while they recorded it using an enchanted audiobook. After the meeting, Sala asked her brother if he was doing the right thing by ratting out Melida like a snitch, but Serge said that he was only helping the angel family to take out the trash. At school the next day, a Joker wannabe suddenly appeared, saying that he was Melida's true father, and because all the girls started to talk about her, Kufa pulled out his sword to scare the man away. Later that night, after inspecting Melida's mana as usual, Kufa told her that the best way for them to get rid of all the haters and imposters was for her to pass the entire Vibria Goat exam. However, Melida was worried because she heard that the exam was similar to a 3D scary movie, but Kufa said that if she didn't pass, he would do something way scarier to her in her sleep. To make things interesting, Melida agreed to pass the exam only if she would get a reward, so Kufa said that he would take her to the candy shop and let her lick his lollipop if she passed. With that settled, Melida and Elise joined the older girls to take the exam, and after they had all gathered around the magical elevator, the headmistress verified her identity, and they began to descend. Along the way, the headmistress told the girls that they were all expected to find the layer of the library that corresponded to their class, and complete the exam before the hourglass ran out. But before they could descend completely into the library, the elevator suddenly stopped working, and the ladies were attacked by mysterious wild vines, scattering them into different parts of the abyss. Meanwhile, as Kufa and Rose waited for the girls to return, one of the nuns rushed over to tell them that a special guest had arrived at the academy, asking to meet with Melida's instructor. The guest happened to be Melida's father, Duke Felgus Angel, and when Kufa told him that Melida was taking the Vibria Goat exam, he said that none of it mattered, because he was going to withdraw her from the school anyways. Shocked to hear this, Kufa asked the Duke why he decided to make such a decision, so Felgus said that he had heard the news about the imposter, and was only trying to keep his daughter safe. Kufa begged him for more time to prove that the princess was capable of standing on her own, but Felgus said that Melida was too weak to become a warrior, and would be better off as a housewife. No feminist opinions were hurt in the making of this video. However, Kufa said that the princess was going to join the hero squad one day, but at that moment, a letter was delivered to Duke Felgus telling him that Melida and the others were in danger. The wild vines separated Melida and Elise from the rest of the group, and as they tried to find their way back, they were attacked by the ghosts of the librarians that worked at Vibria Goat. After a long battle, Melida and Elise were able to defeat the ghosts. While they were celebrating their victory, a dozen more ghouls appeared and surrounded them on all sides. Looking around, the girls were certain that it was time for their isekai, but then a strong tornado appeared and wiped out all the monsters, after which Sala and Mule flew down to meet them. In order to keep their plan of exposing Melida a secret, Mule told the girls that she and Sala were also participating in the exam, and that they should all join forces to finish it together. Using one of the books in her purse, Mule was able to pinpoint their exact location. And when the angel girls appeared to be shocked by this trick, Mule decided to show them all of the special books in the library. She handed Melida one of the texts and told her to say the words "once upon a time," after which a cloud of smoke covered the room, and the girls were all dressed up like fairy tale characters. Melida transformed into Cinderella, Elise became Ruby from Little Red Riding Hood, and Mule became a female genie, but Sala paid extra for the peaches and got turned into the Little Mermaid. Frustrated with their tiny plots, Melida and Elise decided to fulfill their fantasies by touching Sala's squishy melons while Mule held her down, until the spell finally wore off, and they all changed back. Focusing on the exam, the girls climbed down the stairs to the appropriate layer, and after reading the instructions, they understood that their task was to tidy up the pile of books on the ground. However, things started to get tricky when lots of tiny demons started to pop out of the books, so Mule explained that they had to kill the demons first before the books could be arranged. Melida decided to take on the demons while the others handled the rest. But when Mule and Sala tried to fit their texts into the shelf, a strange force pushed it back and they got slapped in the face instead. After reading one of the books, Mule realized that the entire exam was like a mini puzzle, so by using her detective skills, she began to tell Sala and Elise exactly where to place each book. Only one book was left after all their efforts, so Melida jumped up to the highest shelf and threw the book inside like a pro athlete, before landing back down with the help of Sala's flight magic. The girls were each given a certification textbook, but before leaving the arena, Mule decided to complete her actual task by asking Melida to tell them why she was taking the exam in the first place. After hesitating a bit, Melida said that she took the exam to prove to everyone that she was a true child of the Angel House, and Mule smiled before offering to show them a shortcut out of the library. However, because Sala wasn't happy with the whole scheme, she grabbed the book from Melida's arms and said that the entire exam was just a trap for them to expose Melida's secrets. Tired of her big mouth, Mule snatched the book away from Sala, and after confirming that Melida was indeed a samurai class, she leaped out of the library like a trained ninja. Sala helped them chase after her, and when Melida finally caught up with Mule, she tried getting an explanation for her betrayal. But Mule used an ancient book spell to transport all of them to another dimension. Meanwhile, in another part of the library, Shenfa and the older girls were fighting off ghosts, and the headmistress met up with them, saying that the wild vine attack was all an illusion caused by one of the books. They were planning on looking for Melida and Elise, when suddenly two men in dark cloaks walked up to them, and when Shenfa moved closer to attack, she was shocked to see that they were zombies. The headmistress used her scepter to take them down, but then the real mastermind behind the attack appeared, and he introduced himself as Crawdall, a powerful wizard who was part of a villain squad known as the Grim Guild. She asked him why he had invaded their school, but Crawdall ignored her question and revived the zombies with his dark magic, so the headmistress charged up her mana and defeated all of them with a single strike. However, while she wasn't looking, Crawdall used one of the zombies to stab her in the back, and then he ordered the rest to finish her off, but Kufa arrived just in time to save the day like a Power Ranger. Annoyed by the arrogant display, Crawdall increased his army of undead soldiers and ordered them to kill Kufa, but the useless protagonist took them all out with ease before defeating Crawdall with 1,000,000 sword slashes. The headmistress was about to leave this world, and she asked Kufa to protect the students for her, but then Crawdall reappeared as a giant skeleton and summoned an army of undead ghosts. Everyone quickly ran towards the elevator, but they were blocked by Crawdall and his army, so Kufa chose to defend them, but the ghouls were too much for him to handle in his human form. While Kufa thought about the risks of revealing his vampire mode, toilet paper suddenly arrived to shield them from the attack, before stretching out his bandages to strangle Crawdall and defeat his minions. Kufa thanked the mummy man, whose real name was William, and although the other girls were terrified by his Egyptian swag, Shenfa walked up to William and thanked him for saving them. William, who was formerly a member of the Grim Guild, decided to warn Kufa about the guild's plan to kidnap all the students, but luckily, Rose and the others were able to take care of that threat. Unknown to them, Kufa's boss was also around, so William decided to strike a deal with the assassin, agreeing to become his apprentice in exchange for turning him into a human again. After securing a new cadet, the Kingpin went on to tell Kufa about Serge Schixel's plan concerning Melida, and how Kufa needed to act fast to stop the rogue from destroying her image. When Melida arrived in the new world, she noticed that her outfit had changed and that Elise was held captive by card soldiers. But Mule told her to shut the hell up because the court session was about to begin. Serge was the judge of this Wonderland courtroom, and he told Melida that she was standing trial for the possible crime of being a fake-ass daughter of the Angel household. The nobles started to act up, calling Melida an imposter princess, and when Serge opened the book that Mule had used to read Melida's mana, he confirmed that her class was samurai and not paladin. Although disturbed that her true powers had now been revealed, Melida confidently said that she was the daughter of Felgus Angel, and that the difference in her mana class was nothing but a genetic mutation.
Stop the cap! Stop the cap right now!
However, when Serge asked her to explain why her mana had taken so long to awaken, Melida was forced to stay quiet in order to keep Kufa from getting into trouble. Her silence triggered everyone in the court and they started to gossip about her family. But when Melida couldn't take it anymore, she yelled at all of them, saying that her late mother was not a hoe. She also said that she was going to prove them wrong by joining the hero squad someday, and because Serge wanted to make a fool of her, he challenged Melida to a fight with his sister Sala. Although she never wanted to be a part of this scandal, Sala had no choice but to obey her brother's orders, and after Melida had grabbed her sword, the two of them began to brawl. Elise tried to help her out, but was quickly intercepted by Mule, and although Melida had the skills to put up a good fight, Sala's Dragon Mana class gave her the upper hand in the battle. Melida kept jumping around to avoid all of Sala's aerial strikes, and the crowd continued to boo at her like a parody artist. But Surge noticed something interesting about her fighting style, and when Sala flew down for the finishing move, Melida quickly dodged her spear before tripping her to the ground with a sharp hit to the ankle, shocking all of the nobles that were present. Seeing that his plan had failed, Surge decided to be a sore loser by destroying everyone in the court using a special pen that created black holes in the earth with just a drop of ink. The nobles began to run for their dear lives, and Sala was afraid of getting sucked in. But after a quick pep talk from Melida, all of the girls decided to team up again to save the day. While she was running towards the exit, Mrs. Othello tripped and her mask fell off, exposing her ugly ass face. But instead of judging her, Melida just smiled and told her to get going. The girls were just about to escape as well, when the exit door suddenly closed shut, and Bijou Nice, the imposter from before, used his dark magic to trap them inside a caged arena. Fed up with his antics, Elise ran forward to attack Bijou, but he used a pile of black slop to dampen her sword's power, before smashing her away with his overpowered walking stick. Melida was able to break her fall, so Bijou decided to teach her a lesson by launching the black goo at her as well. But just like many times before, Kufa appeared from God knows where to protect her. Bro is literally the anime version of Batman. Kufa said that he was going to handle Bijou alone, but Melida didn't want to be a side character in the final battle of the movie, so they both agreed to share the spotlight instead. Charging at their opponent, the tutor and his student began to slice up all of Bijou's black magic. And while Kufa actively fought against him, Melida kept trying to land a surprise attack on the freak. She finally got her chance after Kufa knocked him to the ground, and Melida blasted Bijou to the sky with a Superman punch, allowing Kufa to finish him off with his ultimate lightning blade jutsu. Melida embraced Kufa after the fight was over, and while Elise was looking all jealous, Mule decided to change her ways and become a good person. By throwing her Mana Revelation book into the river, Kufa was able to transport everyone safely to the surface, and following the events of the Vibria goat scandal, Surge decided to support Melida by erasing all the false rumors about her lineage. Felgus Angel was shocked to hear that Bijou Nice was the imposter all along, because Bijou was a dedicated member of the hero squad, who always walked by his side. He planned on leaving for the squad's HQ to investigate the matter, but before Felgus could enter the train, Melida ran to the station and called out to him, while hoping for some kind of validation. Walking up to her, Felgus said that he believed in Melida's samurai class because her grandmother was born with the same Mana class as well, and he also said that she looked exactly like her mother. After waiting so long to hear those words from her father, Melida couldn't stop the tears from flowing out, so Felgus left her alone with Kufa, the man who brought all of her dreams into reality. Guess he wasn't so useless after all. Set your heart ablaze, go beyond your limits, and watch this next video.